Are you looking for some more ideas for using your 6x8 pattern paper, or would you like to get started on your Christmas cards? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have the holiday pattern collection from scrapbook.com. I chose a snowflake paper today, and it's a 6x8 pattern paper collection. This might also be available in A2. They do sometimes do both, but I don't know if it's always both. Anyway, this pattern has snowflakes and stars, and I wanted to use this one because I want to make some more general like winter cards. I donate a lot of my cards, and the organization say, you know, we only need so many Christmas cards. We can only use those on like one specific day, and not everyone celebrates, of course. So having winter cards that they can use all season long is very helpful too. So I've kind of been celebrating Christmas in July, but we're gonna kind of just shift to a little bit more like a winter theme than a specific Christmas card today. I'm going to be working with 6x8 paper busting template for slimline cards number 7. There are a few of these available for free at jesscrafts.com for individual download. However, this is only in the Etsy pack. So if you want to get the full set of 10, you need to purchase it in the Etsy shop if you just want to try a few. Or you can just follow along with the video. I'm going to be super clear. There's not a lot of cuts. They're kind of bigger cuts too and that kind of thing. So you could just follow along with the directions, write down the measurements, etc. So when using tools like paper trimmers, please be sure to follow all manufacturers' safety instructions. We're going to start with a 6x8 piece of patterned paper. And I am going to cut it to 6 by 2 inches. So I'm going to cut 2 inches off the top here. And I'm going to do that twice because each of the cards, the way that my paper busting templates work is I make 2 or more, sometimes it is only 1, of the exact same card. So it's not like you have to, if once you know how to make one of them, you know how to make both of them. So I need these 6 by 2 inch pieces. Then the next cut I am going to make is a 3 inch long piece. And that will leave me with 1 inch remaining. So I'm actually going to measure it to 3 inches. That gives me this 1 inch piece. The 1 inch piece gets cut in half to 3 by 1. And this is where today I'm going to put my sentiment, but you could use it in different ways. But if you kind of look on the card sketch, it's a pretty clear place that you could add like a sentiment or a focal point. And then this last piece here, I'm going to cut into 4 of the same size piece, and they're all going to be 1.5. So 1.5 times 4 will be all the way across this 6 inch piece. So I'm measuring it 1.5 inches away. So from 6 to 4.5 to 3 to 1.5. And then that gets me all of those 1.5 inch pieces. At this point, I will probably start sorting things into trays from scrapbook.com so that I don't confuse which pieces go where. When I'm only making 2 cards, it's not that big a deal, but in general, I have them right on my desk. I use them pretty much every time I craft. You can use boxes, envelopes, you know, old box lids, recycled items kind of thing. All right, then I'm gonna need some cardstock to make cardstock mats for this card. And I'm gonna go with a blue. I have this paper, it's kind of a mint color. And I want to go for a little bit of like a monochromatic look, so I'm going to keep it in like the blues and blue greens for the most part today. And so I'm going to start with my scraps, see if I can get all the pieces that I need from them. I think I have already cut mats for one of the cards because I was doing some other kind of prep work. So I'm thinking, is this one here might be the 1 1/4? Perfect, it is. So I can cut my 3 1/4 inch piece. So where you find the mat measurements on the sketch is right next to the pattern paper measurements, specifically on the sketch part. This is for only the pattern paper. And then here was where the extra stuff you need. So I have 3 by 1. My mats are generally 1/4 inch bigger, so I need 3 1/4 by 1 1/4. Then I have the 1.5 by 3. So I need 1 3/4 by 3 1/4, and I need that twice. And then finally, I have the 6 by 2, so I need a 6 1/4 by 2 1/4 inch mat. That's where all the measurements are, and I'm going to find those out of these scraps as much as possible. This is a 2 1/4 inch scrap, so since it's already 2 1/4, I'll cut it down to 6 1/4, and then I need to find enough to make, this is 3 1/4, which is the like height measurement I need, but can I get 2 1 3/4 inch pieces out of it? It looks like it. I could do the math real quick, but honestly, it's easier just to cut it because I'm pretty sure it'll work. Yep, and I'm left with that tiny scrap. So luckily I was able to get it all out of my scraps today. This small of a piece, I would either glue it together and use it as fake foam tape. So like fold it in half, glue it together. I use 110-pound cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker. And then I could use that to kind of make something pop up a little bit. Or I could just toss a little piece like this. But then these ones I'll save because I think I might still be able to cut future mats out of them. And as most of you probably know, I'll just store that right there in my job ticket holder with my full sheets of cardstock. So usually the next thing I would do is show you how I assemble the card. But today I'm gonna make some of my design choices based off of my embellishments. So I wanted to talk about that first. I have been kind of going through my stash, thinking about things that like haven't used at all or not much. And I found this die set called Berry Christmas from scrapbook.com. And I think I got it as part of like a live stream deal last year. So maybe some of you picked up that same one. And on the back, it shows you how they all look assembled. I love when they do that, super, super helpful. So I'm making this bear today because I think that he'll look pretty cute on the card. And I think polar bears are great for general winter cards, but I like that this set is versatile and that you don't have to only make Christmas cards with it. So I have my bear cut, and this is what my final product is going to look like, but I wanted to talk about some of the decisions I made in getting to that final product. I cut out the bear outline and the like snout in white. I'm gonna bring this closer, hoping that you might be able to see that there are like slight lines in it. And these are like embossed lines. These embossed lines add some dimension to make the polar bear like look like it has like arms and the little ear folds. I'll show you on the die. That would have been much easier. So those do come through on the paper. I want to highlight those with some ink. I do think that using, I have Lost Shadow from Distress Ink, Tim Holtz, Ranger. I use the scrapbook.com magic mat in the bottom of my like sandwich. I guess it's not the bottom of my sandwich, but like underneath my die is my scrapbook.com magic mat in my die cutter. And I find that it helps with the dies that have that embossing detail. It just gives a slightly more like, I guess it pushes into the die more or something. I don't know. I personally just think it gives a better result. Your results may vary, but that's what I like to do or what I like to use. That's why, like, the reason that I switched to using the magic mat instead of a traditional die cutting plate is because it helps with these embossed dies, and scrapbook.com has a lot of those available. And I like how it adds a lot of detail to die cutting without a lot of extra work on my part. And then I have these tiny little blending brushes. I think these are from, yeah, Simon Says Stamp. I found a good deal on them one time, and they had a lot of the nice rainbow colors, so I don't have to put any like clips on them or something. I just know this is the gray one because it's gray. And then I use the same gray brush for all of my gray colors. I don't mind that. Okay, so I basically just kind of ran my blending brush all along the edges, and I left the inside more untouched, more like true white. But this is adding to the dimension and bringing out some of those embossed lines. Then I'm going to glue the snout down, which I also went around with my Distress ink, and I went a little darker on the snout so that it kind of stands out a bit more. Then the die set, oh, this is like a sticky mat from scrapbook.com too. I like it because if you saw, I didn't have to hold my paper very much, and I didn't have to hold my ink pad at all. Sometimes the paper still slips around in my experience. Might be depending on how small it is or how aggressive you ink, I don't know. The die set has these little things here, and those are the ears and eyes of some of the polar bears. I think there's another one up here. And you can use the back to kind of help you tell which one's supposed to be which, but I didn't try to figure that out at all, because those of you who've watched my channel for a while might know that what I'm just gonna do is draw them in. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit more closely what I'm doing here. But for the nose, I'm going to make a triangle that's upside down and rounded. I mean, I guess it's not quite, is there a right side up of a triangle? But I'm going to make it like flat on top and pointy on the bottom, but I'm going to kind of round it. So that's how if I think of my shape ahead of time, that helps me to get a more, like I'm more likely to do what I intend to do if I break it down into what my goal is first. Okay. And I know for some of you, like, this is really easy to draw on, but this can be intimidating for others. So I thought I'd go over it since this is something that I tend to do a lot, draw in little details instead of die cutting them. And then for the eyes, I sometimes hesitate to do a circle because I feel like I'm more likely to fuss with perfecting a circle and making sure they're the same size. So sometimes an oval can be easier. So you can decide what works better for your critter, but an oval or a circle usually works well for critter eyes. You want to think about where you're going to place it in relation to the snout or other details. So here I did circle and I'm like, this one's a little bit bigger and it's not quite a perfect circle. And so that's why I find them to be maybe a little bit more tricky, but I also try to remind myself it's okay if they're not perfect. No one is expecting a handmade card to be perfect. It is that, a handmade card. So then this all gets glued together. It gets layered on there. This is part of the die set, is this outline piece to help to really kind of make it stand off the card a bit. And then there are these little ear muffs for this polar bear. You don't have to include them, but that's why I didn't worry about adding any detail to the ears because they're mostly covered by those. And I only need 2 today, but I did make a couple extra in case I make a mistake. I really don't like how one turns out. And then if I like how they all turned out, great, I have embellishments for another card. Okay, ready to move on to start like finishing up this card. I did find this Hello Winter stamp set. I have used it a few times for the sentiments, and I think it might have again come in that same, oh no, I think it's gonna be a different, like, I've bought a lot of scrapbook live stream deals. They're really, can be quite enticing. Anyway, I found this Hello Winter sentiment. I thought it would take up a nice chunk of that 1-inch piece, and because the winter part of the sentiment is so bold, it would still be readable on the, like, stamped directly onto the pattern paper. I think you could stamp it on either side of the pattern paper and it would still be readable, but I'll talk about why I picked this side. Because this was a brand new stamp I'd never stamped before and it was kind of thick, I did use this tool that has a piece of leather on the bottom, and I bought it at Etsy shop. I will try to remember to link and name the Etsy shop in the video description. And it's supposed to like basically condition it. And so I find when I did a whole review on this tool too, when I just like rub the piece of leather that they use against my stamp, I get a better first impression. Now you can condition your stamps just by stamping them. I've done that plenty of times, but I did, you know, and you'll see if you want more details, you can watch the review. I'll link that as well. That it did speed up the process. So I do think it works. Maybe it's not worth it to everyone in terms of the cost, or maybe just like a scrap of leather will do the job. But I just have experimented with that tool and I have had success. And now that I have it, that's what I use. So anyway, I can stamp my sentiment on and get a pretty good impression, even though it's such a thick stamp that first time, but I'll probably stamp it one more time. Okay. Coming over here to the card, I decided, part of the reason I said I needed to kind of know what my embellishment would look like before I went ahead and assembled my card is because I was a little bit concerned that the white polar bear, even with the blue outline, would feel a little bit like it's getting lost here on this background that is mostly white. So I wanted to use the other side where the background is not white. And so because I depended on this piece was the one I was like, this one is the one that matters which side I choose. The other pieces not so much. I would then wanted to make sure I knew which side I liked with the bear so that I could then switch to the other side for the other pieces. Hopefully that makes sense. Of course, you could be doing this with single-sided paper and that would be totally fine. And I could even, in fact, now I probably will overlap this a little bit. So it might be a little bit less important that I chose this, but you can see it's still most of the bear. But I like to mix up my patterns. I think that's the advantage of double-sided paper. So I like to take advantage and actually use both patterns on most of my cards. But most, or I guess all of the sketches would technically work with single-sided paper. It's just that some of my sketches do not work with directional pattern paper. So, but you can sometimes make them work if one side is directional and the other side is not. Here I'm noticing this is going to stretch across this center, and it might bow down a little bit here and kind of come up on the sides. So you could take a piece of scrap cardstock and support it here. Another thing that I will probably do is put a little bit of scrap cardstock in kind of in lieu of foam tape behind the bear where it's overlapping this sentiment so that he kind of pops off the card just a tiny bit. So then I was able to complete my 2 slimline cards with 1 sheet of 6x8 pattern paper and no patterned paper scraps. So my slimline cards are 3.5 by 8.5 if I haven't already mentioned that measurement. You can get this template in a pack of 10. So there'll be 10 different ways to use 6x8 pattern paper on slimline cards, and that but there's also some that are free at jesscrafts.com, so I will link that as well. These are very wintry cards. They have this nice monochromatic look. There are printable winter jokes at jesscrafts.com. They don't say anything like no happy holidays message at all, purely winter, so that if you're looking to donate cards that an organization can use maybe in January or February, not around the holidays, you can use those jokes. There are a couple organizations that do accept slimline cards. I don't want to name any because their policies can always be changing, so it might not be true when you watch this video. However, you can always look at the list at jesscrafts.com and it'll link you to usually like their card guidelines, and it might say, you know, we accept any size card, or you can always reach out to them by email. I'll leave you a link to the intricate die cutting like tips, like for intricate die cutting for lazy crafters or something like that, because I call myself lazy. It's like a joke in the video. And also to the review of this tool if you were curious about it. So if you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with the share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.